welcome back to the Double Trouble Podcast. It's been a while since the last episode as we move into the first episode of Season 2. It will have a new logo, the intro will have new music, and it'll all be a different experience than what you saw in the past episodes. Still the same podcast, it's still the same host, and we are still going to talk about basketball and football. I'll try to get this more back on track. The thing was with free agency, there was signings happening every day, and obviously I don't record this every day, so I didn't want to record the podcast, and in the middle of me recording the podcast, they announced a signing, and I have to, I wouldn't know what to do, so I just decided that I was going to wait till after everything at free agency to make one big episode where I can talk about all of free agency. And earlier today, right before I started recording this, they released the schedule for the new season, so for opening night. So I'm very excited to talk about that and see what we have going on. On the last episode, we heavily went into the draft, and I went into some of my predictions for the first few picks of the draft. In the top 3, there was no surprise there. Many people wanted the Warriors to pick Denny, but I just didn't think there was a reason to pick Denny at 2. The top 2 was going to be Wiseman, Edwards, and Ball. But the question was in what order those 3 would go, but there was no question of who was going to be top 3. It was going to be those people. And they went in the order many expected. LaMelo to Charlotte, Edwards to Minnesota, and Wiseman to Golden State. And the most surprising selection was the Bulls jumping up at 4 and picking Patrick Williams. And there was a lot of people that were upset at this pick. Patrick Williams was not the player that many people expected the Bulls to get. Bulls players had started to fall in love with Deni Avdija, and I thought they would pick Deni Avdija or Obi Toppin, but they picked Patrick Williams. And I think what had happened was the Bulls wanted to trade down, and they couldn't find any suitors, so they ended up picking the player that they were going to trade down to get. Patrick Williams, he's exceptional at both sides of the floor, and he has a very high ceiling, but a very low floor. And that's a lot of players in this draft class. They have very high ceilings, but very low floors. At the best, they can be a very good player, but at the worst, they can be a very bad player, especially for the spot you pick them in. And Patrick Williams is one of those players. He's known for he's great on both sides of the ball, especially defensively, and that's what the Bulls need. They haven't been a good defensive team. Their star player, Zach LaVine, is known for his lack of defense, so they need defense. And especially Jim Boylan, who was one of the worst defensive coaches in the league, firing him is step 1 to get back on their defensive track. But I thought if you were going to pick a defensive forward, I thought they should have picked Isaac Okoro there. Obviously, my Cleveland Cavaliers got Isaac Okoro the pick after that. I thought Isaac Okoro was better than Patrick Williams, especially for the defense, which is what you needed. And I think he's better than Patrick Williams offensively already. However, they went with Patrick Williams, which I'm not mad at. He can be a good player. It was a long shot for 4. He could have been available at 8. However, they wanted to see what he can do at 4, and I think he'll be a good player for the Chicago Bulls. Then at 5, the Cavaliers picked Isaac Okoro. Deni Avdija was really falling in this draft. Many people thought he could go 2, 3, and he ended up going 8 to the Wizards, which, that wasn't the spot many thought he would go to. He ended up going 9 to the Wizards, But that wasn't the spot many people saw Deni going to. But it makes sense. Avdija, he's coming off Israel, but his defense is very questionable. He's a very good player offensively. His jump shot is very smooth, and he's got a very good skill set on the offensive side of the ball. The way he can score, he's a very good scorer, and he has the potential to become like a 20-point scorer in this league. But for Cleveland, though Denny was probably the best player available at 5, they wanted to go with their team needs, and they need defense. They were the second worst defensive team in the league behind the Wizards, so they went for their need, which was defense, and I'm not mad at it at all. I think it was a pretty good selection for their needs, and they needed a small forward. It was no question they were going to pick a small forward, and they got Isaac Okoro at 5, and Sexton likes Isaac Okoro, Garland likes Isaac Okoro. They think he can be a nice piece for them, and he can slide right into the 3, and I don't think the Cavaliers are a playoff team yet, but they're getting better. They're trying to excel in the things that they messed up in the past, and they're trying to replace for who they lost. and eventually they'll get to playoff level. But we're not there yet. We're still rebuilding. We're still getting picks. We're still trying to make some moves to be better in the future, and that's exactly what they did with the Okoro pick at 5. And I think that's gonna be it for my draft talk as we move into free agency. Now, free agency, it was really not going to be that big. The best free agent on paper, Fred VanVleet, as Andre Drummond and DeMar DeRozan, they were gonna opt back in, and it ended up being better than people thought. We started free agency with rumors that Kevin Durant would go to the Nets, and many people didn't want to see that happen. They thought it would ruin parity, and then there was a crowd of people that didn't think it would work. I'm a heavy advocate for, if you get a certain amount of talent on one team, there's no way that it doesn't work. And that's how I felt with Durant, Harden, and Irving. If you have that amount of talent on one team, you're going to win a championship. That's just how it was. The Warriors in 2017, many people think they couldn't have fit together, and they did, because they had too much talent to lose. And that's why they won 2 rings together. But Harden and Irving, they're both personalities. They're both players that are known for not really being able to mesh well with other players. And if you thought that they couldn't work, I wouldn't be mad at you. However, I don't agree. I don't think Harden is worth what the Nets would have to give up. They would have to give up all their depth, LeVert, Dinwiddie, draft picks, because that's the amount that the Rockets want for Harden. And the Rockets aren't wrong for wanting that much for Harden. James Harden is a top 5 player in the league and a former MVP. If you ask for that much of a player of James Harden's caliber, that's nothing wrong with that. They want the Anthony Davis package. But I don't think the Nets should give them the Anthony Davis package for James Harden. I think the Nets should, because James Harden will be available next year. If Houston feel like they didn't get the correct package or they didn't get a deal that they like, they will keep him for this year. And then next year you can see, okay, we lost in the second round. Maybe we need to improve this team. And then you look at, okay, let's go and see what James Harden can do for us. But right now, I don't think there's really a need, because you don't know what this team could do together. You don't know how LeVert and Dinwiddie will mesh with KD and Kyrie. And I think you got to give them a year to just try it out. And if it doesn't work, then so be it. Then you look at Harden, then you look at Blake Griffin, and you look at all the stars available that you have the pieces to trade for. But right now, you got to look at what you have, and you got to believe in it. And the East is looking good this year. This is the best the East has been in a while. So it's going to be difficult for the Nets. It's not going to be a cakewalk like it used to be. But I think the Nets are a good team. I have them coming out of the East. And I had that before the Bucks made the trade for Jrue Holiday, and the Sixers got better, and he got Avery Bradley. And, it's pretty difficult to determine who's going to win the East round. I got to see these teams on the floor. But the Nets have a good shot. When you have KD and Kyrie, you always have a good shot. And speaking of the Bucks, they were a very controversial team in free agency after they made the Jrue Holiday move, which was a great trade for Milwaukee. Jrue Holiday is a bunch of people call him underrated, and I think so too. He's a player I'm very fond of. He's so good on both sides of the ball. He literally took over the series against the Blazers and helped Anthony Davis sweep them. And if he can be a great second option for Anthony Davis, he could be a great option for Giannis Antetokounmpo. And the Bucks, they got shooters. That was one of the problems. Giannis didn't feel like he had enough shooters. He didn't feel like he had enough talent around him. And they got much better. It's finals or bust for the Bucks. Giannis still hasn't signed the Supermax yet. And many of their fans are scared that he doesn't want to be there. And I think he needs to give it a year. 2 years in a row, lost in the first round. I wouldn't sign that Supermax right now. I would wait until the last day to see what the Bucks would do. And I got Bogdan Bogdanovic, who I thought was a big move for them, because Bogdan Bogdanovic is a very good player. But then there was a lot of news about him not even accepting the sign and trade. So he ended up going to the Hawks. He didn't go to the Bucks. The Bucks moved on from Bogdan Bogdanovic and he ended up just getting 2 good bench pieces in DJ Augustine and Bobby Portis. Augustine was very good for the Magic. Bobby Portis was very good for the Knicks. So I'm not mad at what the Bucks did. They got better. They lost Wesley Matthews, who, that's a big piece. Kyle Korver. It seems like Kyle Korver is headed to retirement as he hasn't signed yet. I don't really know what the deal with Kyle Korver, but he wasn't really playing much for the Bucks, so maybe he goes somewhere else, or maybe he calls it a career. And then one more team I want to talk about is the Atlanta Hawks. The Atlanta Hawks, they finally got talent for Trae Young, man. They had struggled for a while and trying to stack for Trae Young. It's been 2 years now, 2 years where he's a very good player, and 2 years where they're one of the bottom teams in the East. And they're definitely not going to be a bottom team in the East this year. I don't know if they'll be a playoff team, but they got very good players. They got Danilo Gallinari, they got Rajon Rondo, and they got nice players like Chris Dunn. I'm excited for Atlanta. I'm excited to see what Atlanta can do. I think they'll be a good team. The East is so stacked that I either see them being an 8 or 7 seed, but it'd still be a step in the right direction from what you got the last 2 years. I mean, last year you were bottom in the East, and then you got Onyeka Okongwu in the draft, which that's a very good piece. So Atlanta, they really did well. They really did well. And we're finally going to see Trae Young play some competitive basketball. I don't know. I don't think they're contenders yet, but they are going to be a good team in the Eastern Conference, and I can't wait to see what they can do. Other moves in the East, many want to talk about, like the Hornets getting Gordon Hayward. And, I mean, there's not much to say about that. The Hornets, they overpaid Gordon Hayward, but here's the thing with that. Small markets have to overpay players for players to come to small markets. That's why Mozgov got all that money. That's why Mason Plumlee got all that money. That's how it works. That's how teams get players to come to their cities. They overpay them because it isn't really an enticing market. You get to play for Michael Jordan, and that's really it. That's all the enticing of Charlotte. But when you are offered $30 million a year to play for Charlotte, that's when you want to play for Charlotte. But you don't want to play for Charlotte on its own. So that's what Charlotte did to get Gordon Hayward. I mean, I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at the signing of Gordon Hayward. They gave him a lot of money, but I think they envision that having this long offseason, a lot of time to rest and heal, that he can come back and be a very good player, and he can maybe go back to his Utah days. And maybe they're under the hope of that, and that's why they give him all that money. So I'm not mad at it. I mean, a lot of people don't think it was a good move, but there's a lot of worse things the Charlotte Hornets could have done. There's a lot of worse things they've done in the past, like giving Nick Batum all that money, giving Bismack Biyombo all that money. But Gordon Hayward isn't that bad, and I think it was a good signing for them. I'm excited to see what he can do alongside LaMelo Ball. And now moving on to the West, the Lakers, they actually started off free agency with the trade for Dennis Schroeder, that is a great trade for Golden State. For the Los Angeles Lakers. I think Dennis Schroeder, he's probably gonna start after formally coming off the bench, but he started on Atlanta and he was really good on Atlanta. So I think he can start at a high level, and it looks like that's what he's gonna do. That's the role he's gonna play on LA alongside LeBron, Anthony Davis, and he's gonna be good for them, man. He's gonna be very good for them. And they got so much better. They got 2 out of the 3 6 Man of the Year candidates. They also got Montrezl Harrell, and that was unexpected. Montrezl Harrell, he was one of the biggest pieces of those Clippers. We are LA, that mindset of the Los Angeles Clippers. Then he goes to the other LA team, and that must devastate Clippers fans. That must devastate Clippers players, and it's very interesting. Truth is, the Lakers got better, and they already won a championship. They really ran through the bubble. There was no team that gave them that much of a challenge, and now they're adding 2 6 Man of the Year level players. And they also added Wesley Matthews from Milwaukee, who's a great shooter. They got rid of Danny Green. They got rid of JaVale McGee, the clear cap for Marcus Gasol, another great player. So that team is very good right now, and they're the conclusive number 1 in most people's power rankings, and for good reason too. They look like they're going to repeat. It's one of the best teams in terms of talent LeBron has ever been on. And it's just, I don't know. I take like the 13 Heat over them, but they're definitely better than the 16 Cavs. They're definitely better than all those finals teams LeBron had on Cleveland. And they're better than a lot of teams LeBron has been on. And they're better than a lot of teams that we've ever seen. But it's obviously too early to call, but that team has a lot of talent, man. And they're going to do some big things. And the first trade when trades actually became official was Chris Paul to the Suns. That's a trade that it was surprising. We knew the Suns were going after Chris Paul. We saw the reports, but we didn't think it would actually happen that soon. And it did. The Thunder was shopping Chris Paul during the season, before the season. And nobody thought Chris Paul would come into this season on the Thunder. And he did. And he was very good for the Thunder. His value came back. The Rockets, to trade Chris Paul, had to put a bunch of picks on top of him. That's how low his value was. And now they flipped his value, and the Thunder got a plethora of picks. The Thunder made a great deal. Was a great deal for both teams. And the Suns are finally going to be competitive. They finally got talent alongside Devin Booker. And they're going to be fun to watch. Chris Paul is a great player. He makes his teammates better. Many players had their best years alongside Chris Paul. David West was best alongside Chris Paul. Blake Griffin, best alongside Chris Paul. DeAndre Jordan, best alongside Chris Paul. And the Suns, they have bigs that Chris Paul can help develop. They picked Jalen Smith, that was a great pick for them. And Chris Paul, he will be very key to Jalen Smith's development. And they also have DeAndre Ayton, who was obviously the number one pick, who Chris Paul can make him a star. He really can. And you can look in 2 years where the Suns, they might have 3 All-Stars. It depends if Chris Paul regresses or not. It depends if Chris Paul stays healthy. But if both of those things don't happen, if Chris Paul stays healthy, if Chris Paul doesn't regress, that's a very good Suns team. In a stacked Western Conference, we're finally going to see Devin Booker play some meaningful basketball. He's about 4 years into his career, and he's never played a playoff game. He's never even been close to playing a playoff game. But we're finally going to see him play some big basketball. And Chris Paul, he's going to help that team drastically. They didn't even give up much for Chris Paul. They got Chris Paul without giving up the 10th pick, which was big for them. And they really just gave up a bunch of young pieces and second-round picks, which was expected for a player like Chris Paul. They didn't give up anything crazy. Many people were upset about them giving up Kelly Oubre, but Kelly Oubre ended up getting traded from OKC a few weeks later. So the Suns made a good trade. The Suns are going to be great. And yeah, I mean, it was really good for the Suns. They finally stacked up, and they're finally getting talent alongside Booker. I think that's really it for the basketball portion of the show. The only thing I really missed was Klay Thompson's injury. I wanted to get into it, but what's to say that hasn't already been said, right? I mean, Klay Thompson, very good player for Golden State. And that's going to hurt. He's going to be out another year. It's going to be 2.5 years since he has played some basketball, and he's not going to be the same player when he comes back. Golden State, they were contenders. Many people are like, this team can do serious things, and now they're not. They can't win a championship without Klay Thompson. That's just common knowledge. And I don't even know for Golden State where they go from here. They have to rely on Wiseman's development. They have to rely on Wiggins' development. They have to rely on Oubre development. And I think they'll be a good team. But they definitely won't be able to contend without Klay. And after losing Kevin Durant, man, they lost a lot of talent. And we'll see what they do next season. Moving on to the second portion of the show, which is football. And I've been watching a lot of football. But I want to talk about the game that is today. Steelers-Ravens. After a lot of postponements, after all the stuff that went on. It was supposed to be on Thanksgiving, then it was going to be on Sunday, then it was going to be on Monday, then it was going to be on Tuesday. Now it's Wednesday afternoon. Wednesday at 3:40, like one of the weirdest times for a football game ever. And it's going to be one of the weirdest football games. Robert Griffin will be starting for the Baltimore Ravens after Lamar Jackson tested positive for COVID. The Ravens, their running backs are out. Willie Snead is out. This game is not going to be a win for the Ravens. And then they'll move to 6-5, which is just unfortunate because they have a hard schedule. And I mean, I really don't know if they're going to make the playoffs. If they're going to go to 6-5, they have to hope the Dolphins lose some games. They have to hope the Raiders keep losing. It's going to be a tall task for the Ravens to make the playoffs. If they are 6-5. But I feel like they can do it because I feel like this Ravens team, they still got a lot. They got an easy schedule. They got the Cowboys next week. They can still do it because this is still the Ravens. They still have the reigning MVP. They still have a lot of talent on this team. And I wouldn't even count them out against the Steelers tonight because Robert Griffin, he has a history of being a good quarterback. I mean, and the Steelers, they have had games where they struggled. Both of these teams haven't practiced all week. Both of these teams, it's going to be a weird game. And when it's a game as weird as this, any team could win, really. So I don't count the Ravens out of this game, and I don't count the Steelers out of this game. Either team could walk out with the win. And I was also watching the game on Monday, the Eagles and the Seahawks, and there was a lot of talk about benching Carson Wentz, and I don't even know, really. Like, you bench Carson Wentz, you assume your season is over, because Jalen Hurts is not going to take you to the playoffs. Jalen Hurts would be a step for the future, and it would basically be saying your season is over. But you can't do that because your season isn't over. Because you're in such a bad division, even though you're so bad, even though Carson Wentz is playing so bad, that you're only a couple games out of winning the division. And that's why you can't bench Carson Wentz, because you can't give up on your team. You've had some good wins, and you can still make the playoffs. You can still go on a run and do something. Well, you probably not, but is it possible? Yes, because this Eagles team, they have moments, and that's really what we've seen from the Eagles this year. They have moments. They have really good moments, like when they were up 14-0 on the Washington football team. Then they have really bad moments. And, I mean, against the Seahawks, that was one of the really bad moments. That was one of the moments where you felt ashamed to be an Eagles fan. I don't know where they'll go from here, but I think they should stay with Wentz. Doug Peterson is probably going to get fired, and they're probably going to clean house this offseason. I don't know if they get off of Wentz this offseason, but here's the thing. Carson Wentz's contract is so bad that you cannot trade Carson Wentz. You're not going to be able to trade him. You can just bench him, but, I mean, I can't even wrap my head around you paying a player that much money to come off the bench. So I don't know what's going to go on with the Eagles, but I don't think benching Carson Wentz is going to magically fix all these problems. You have a lot of problems, and Carson Wentz is part of the problem, yes. But Carson Wentz or not, you still have these problems. You still have a bad offensive line. Like, Carson Wentz or not, these problems are still there. So the bench Carson Wentz and act like these problems will just go away is just, it's really not, it's really disingenuous, and it's not what they should do. I want to talk about some Sunday games that popped out to my eye. The New York Giants are in the lead of the NFC East. They came into the season, nobody had them making the playoffs. And at the moment, if the season was to end today, they would make the playoffs. And it's just crazy how bad this division is. It is historically bad. But the Giants are playing good football lately. They're on a few game winning streak. They beat the football team. They beat the Eagles. And now they have beat the Cincinnati Bengals. But every time something goes right for the Giants, something has to go wrong, because the Giants just can't have good things. The football gods just will not let them. And Daniel Jones is out for 1 to 2 games. He will at least miss the Seahawks game, and the Cardinals game is still up in the air. I mean, the Seahawks game wasn't a win anyway for the Giants. That's the thing. All of the NFC East is going to lose this upcoming week. The Washington football team have the Steelers. They're not going to win that game. The Cowboys have the Ravens. They're not going to win that game. The Eagles have the Packers. Also, they're not going to win that game. So, all of the NFC is going to lose, which would keep everyone at the same record, which would keep the Giants in the lead. Unless someone pulls out a miracle win, that's what it looks like so far. So, I think the Giants should be okay. Let Daniel Jones get some rest. 2 games that they were not going to win. And then he comes back versus the Browns, which is a winnable game. And he's going to have to perform. This is not an easy schedule for the Giants. They can't even afford to. They can't afford to lose, to go on a losing streak. They have the division right now. They gotta get some wins, and it's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. It's a team with a hard schedule, but they have to if they want to make the playoffs. And people were upset about the Giants losing the draft order, saying the Giants should be trying to lose. But I never agree with making a team have a losing mentality. The Giants, they should be trying to win. They should be trying to get this home playoff game. And they should be trying to just see what they can do. Because a playoff appearance is a step in the right direction. After you've been a laughingstock of the league for the past 3-4 years. So, if they make the playoffs, I wouldn't be mad. All Giants fans will rejoice. And it's what they should go for sure. Another game I was watching was my Saints going against the Denver Broncos. This season, it's the most unprecedented season in NFL history. It's the weirdest season in NFL history. And things just happen, man. You couldn't have predicted that the Broncos would be playing a practice squad wide receiver at quarterback going into this season, and they did. And Kendall Hinton, he was bad. He didn't play well, but the Broncos were not going to win that game with Drew Lock and with a wide receiver at quarterback. If they won that game, it would have been a miracle. It just would have. And they didn't. Taysom Hill was okay again. He didn't have a great game, but he did what he needed to do. He played good situational football. He turned over the ball one time, a turnover that I wouldn't even say was his fault. It got tipped into the air, and then it was picked off by a rookie. That was. I mean, many people were bad at Hill. Listen, Taysom Hill. He didn't have a great game, but that was going to happen. He's thrown 1 interception in 2 games. He had 4 rushing touchdowns. He's fine. He's fine. Now he goes against the Falcons this week. The team he had his first start against. He played well against the Falcons last time, but he hasn't been drastically bad. He's had good moments and he's had bad moments. He's made some really good throws and he's made some really bad throws. But there's no reason to make any changes. I think he will play good against the Falcons again, and I just think you have to see what you had in Taysom Hill, and they've been trying to see what they have in Taysom Hill, and they feel like they have something. I mean, he's been playing good football. I wouldn't be mad if they feel like they have something, and I wouldn't be mad if they don't draft a quarterback and they go with Taysom Hill next year, because Taysom Hill is extremely talented, and who to say he can't play quarterback? He can do a lot of things, and if he gets some time to really learn the offense and to really work on his craft, I think he can be something special. I really do. The last game I'm going to talk about is the Buccaneers and the Chiefs. That game at the beginning, it was going to be a blowout. Tyreek Hill was literally destroying the Buccaneers. It was crazy. It was like I have never seen anything like it. Tyreek Hill, he had broke the fantasy record for points in the game, almost broke the receiving record for yards in the game. He might be the best receiver in the NFL. A lot of people say Hopkins, a lot of people say Julio Jones, but Tyreek Hill is really proving a case to be the best receiver in the NFL. And Patrick Mahomes, he's really proven a case to be the best quarterback in the NFL. Those two guys are just special, man. And I knew the Buccaneers weren't going to win that game. But they made it close at the end. Tom Brady played some good football. He had 2 75-yard drives, 2 very good drives. And he made it close at the end. I have to give that to the Buccaneers. But they weren't going to win that football game. And they didn't win the game. But I need to see my Chiefs against the Saints. I need to see how the Chiefs match up against the Saints. But right now, it looks like there's no team that could touch the Chiefs. Right now. And obviously that could change. But the Chiefs, they just look unstoppable. They look unstoppable. Man, so I don't know if it's going to change in the future. But right now, the Chiefs are the best team in the league. Patrick Mahomes is probably the MVP. And yeah, that's where we're at in the NFL. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Double Trouble Podcast. If you made it this far, as always, I'm very appreciative of you. I know we've been out for a while, but I'm going to try to get back on a weekly schedule. Like I said, there was a lot going on in free agency, and I didn't know when to post, but I thought going into the season, this was a very good time to post a podcast. And, I mean, next week, I don't know, is there going to be much to talk about in the NBA? That's the thing. In the off season, it's pretty dry. So, you're not going to get episodes every week like you were getting during the bubble when there's basketball every week. But once basketball comes back, you'll get episodes very often. But yeah, that's going to be it for the first episode of Season 2 of the Double Trouble Podcast. And as always, thank you for watching. I'm out.